In my previous video, I had on the easel a painting that was at half completed, and I had a working title for it called At the Edge of Town. And in that video, I showed the palette that I was using and also the preliminary sketch that I was working from. And I wanted to review that with you first in this video before I show you the finished painting. So as I promised in the last one, I said I would show the finished painting. So anyway, the palette used for the painting is cobalt blue, and then a light red, which is a Winsor Newton product, and it's called light red. It's, as you can see, it's a little bit warmer than burnt sienna. And then I have yellow ochre, cadmium yellow light, and raw umber. And this row here indicates those same colors with a little bit of white added so that you can discern what the colors are a little more easily. This is the color sketch, the study that I did prior to drawing it off on the larger canvas and proceeding. This sketch is really important because it defines the composition, the value structure, and the drawing. And so it was real important that once I decided I wanted to do a 24-30 canvas, that this sketch be proportional to that, and it is. The sketch is 4.5 by 5 5/8 inches. It's done on paper, gessoed with a white gesso on it, and then it was masked off, and then it was toned with a light ivory black. In other words, just a very light tone of ivory black, and then the drawing proceeded with raw umber. And from there I worked out all the drawing, the perspective, which is the proportion also, the value structure and the composition, all that was worked out. And then the colors, these colors right here, were applied. And this sketch was completed. Now this sketch doesn't mean much if I don't, use it. I created it so that it would actually aid me in doing the larger painting. The thing about the sketches are there's less time invested in these, so if it's not satisfactory, there's always the opportunity to do another one until you get the type of feel and mood that you want. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this and show you the completed painting. It's zoomed in a little bit right now, so I'll zoom back somewhat and show you the whole painting. All those, the sketch and everything that was used for this. And I used the values, the same composition, all of that to complete this painting. But here is there's a completed painting. Hi, I'm John Potoshnik. I thank you for joining me for this video. This painting was probably completed 3 weeks ago, and it just enforces something that I've taught my students, and I have believed, and many professional artists believe, that it's best, if you can, to set a painting aside a while before you actually ship it out or, frame it or whatever. Let it set aside a while and come back with a fresh eye, and that's exactly what happened to me. Not purposely, but it was the way it worked, because we were out of town and I came back and viewed it in the studio and realized there are some things I could change on it. And so I made those changes, and one was this line right here. I had it just felt uncomfortable when I viewed it after I'd been away a while, but I had this line with these two eaves here descending at a much sharper angle, and so I made those more shallow. And so I had to change the perspective on the window and the indication of the siding there. Also, it may be a little bit difficult to see it, but I warmed up this area right through here, these greens through here, and then I put highlights on these leaves. And if you notice, all that is right near the focal point, and the focal point's not hard to figure out where it is, but this just adds extra sparkle, extra contrast, and makes that focal point a little more interesting and inviting. The other real important thing to know about this painting, and anytime we do any painting for that matter, whether it be figurative or still life or landscape like this, and architectural subjects, which this certainly contains, is that we must, first of all, know where the eye level is. Eye level is always the horizon line. And so I had to establish the horizon line, decide where I wanted that to be. My reference material for this painting was the car wasn't there and the railroad tracks back here were not there. So the car had to be constructed and placed in the scene in the correct proportion and perspective and the right eye level. And the railroad tracks, of course, were not that complicated to do. I just had to be aware of where they were relative to the horizon line. So I've been around these, I know these cars. I know that my eye level comes up to about this point on the car. And also, before the car was applied, I visualized that if I was to walk up to this house and stand there, I could probably look in one of those windows about halfway up. So that's where I made the horizon line, all the way across a straight line. And you can see that that's where that part of the, just above the windows there, lines up with that horizon line. So once I had that established, and I established the base of where the car was going to sit, because the driveway determined that, then all I had to do, the height relative to the length, to get the right proportion, and I could construct it in there. And that's how the car was done. So it's real important that one be aware of horizon line. Remember, everything above the eye level, horizon line, the same thing. Everything above descends, everything below ascends, and meets somewhere on that line. You know, the paintings that we create they mean something. We are creating them because we want to communicate something. I mean, otherwise, why would we even bother to paint it? There's something about the scene, something that we want to get across to the viewer. And all the paintings are like that. And this painting is, you know, the same thing. It has all kinds of little suggestions in there about what I want to communicate. The car is an older car, so it depicts an era. It also, the title of this piece is At the Edge of Town. So what does the edge of town indicate? Well, I remember when I was a child and went to my grandmother's house, she lived maybe about a block or so from the railroad tracks, and she was on the edge of town. That made me think of that. Oh yes, that would enhance the idea that this whole scene is depicting a structure and a family that lives on the edge of town. So the railroad tracks were added, the little rise there, the old car, and then other things that indicate that it represents country. It's kind of unkempt. The sidewalk is breaking down somewhat, and there's some growth, some grasses growing up in it. So it's just becoming old and weathered. The mailbox indicates also something that you would see more in the country than you would in the city. And then there's space between the houses, which also indicates country life. And then there's water in the ditch, which indicates there was a recent rain. So all those things they're little, but added together, they help enhance and create this mood and feeling that I want to capture in this painting. I seriously considered putting a guy in there, probably right in here someplace, mowing the lawn, you know, with the old push mower. But the more I considered, I tried it, and I thought, no, it's just adding more stuff, and really it might draw the eye away a little bit, and it was just complicating the scene. And I thought, well, the scene communicated everything I wanted to without the guy, so I left him out. So, you know, what happens after a painting like this is completed? The next step would be, you know, we have to frame it. And framing is really important. You know, when we have an important meeting and we want to go out and make a good impression, you know, we dress up and we want to present ourselves well. When we built our house, and they, of course, scraped the land before they could construct, when they were done, you know, the house was nice, but there was no landscaping. It was just bare land. So when we added the landscaping to the house, It was the presentation. It made it much more inviting. It made it more presentable. That's the way to view the frame. The frame should enhance the painting. The frame shouldn't say, hey, look at me, I'm a great frame. No, the frame is to enhance the painting and support it. So the frame should support the subject matter, support the coloration of the painting, and support the mood that's in that. And I advise people, you know, depending on your budget, of course, not everybody can afford really nice frames. I have all my frames custom made to fit specifically this painting. But not everybody can do that. And if you can't do it, I would just advise you to think carefully about the frame, because it is the presentation. It just takes your painting to another level and enhances it. It makes it more appealing to a collector who's viewing it. Try to buy the best frame you could buy. You can afford, I guess would be the best way of putting it. So you need to consider those things about framing. They're all important. And next time I want to do a video, something talking about the pricing of the painting, which would be the next step. So I hope you find this video helpful, that you've enjoyed watching. And if you haven't seen the video prior to this one, I encourage you to watch that one, then watch this video. But don't forget my DVD. It's called Limited Palette Landscapes. It's available through Lily Doll Art Videos. 15 hours of good art content. It takes the painting from the very first stages, bare canvas, all the way to the finish. Exactly the same process I used on this. So in that DVD, you'll see the whole process that I approached this painting with. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll catch up with you next time. Thank you.